price of stolen life? Why justice demands more than money for James Gibson. In the shadowed corridors of justice, where the scales are meant to balance, a harrowing tale unfolds, a narrative of torment, betrayal, and a quest for redemption. James Gibson, a man ensnared by the very system sworn to protect, endured nearly 3 decades behind bars, wrongfully convicted of a double homicide. His confession was not a product of guilt, but of human endurance under torture, extracted under the brutal hand of Chicago police detectives. The architects of this travesty operated under the notorious Commander Jon Burge, a name now synonymous with corruption and cruelty. Burge and his cadre of enforcers have been implicated in the torture of over 100 black men, their methods resembling those of war criminals rather than officers of the law. They wielded power not to uphold justice, but to fabricate it, leaving behind a legacy of pain, broken families, and shattered lives. For 29 years, James Gibson lived in a cage built from lies. Imagine losing nearly 3 decades, not because of what you did, but because of what was done to you, watching the world move forward while you remain frozen in time. The voices of loved ones fading, friendships dissolving, family members passing away, their funerals attended by everyone but you. When he was finally exonerated, there was no celebration, no parade, just a world that had long since left him behind. And the city of Chicago, the same city that enabled his suffering, now braces for yet another multi-million-dollar payout. Another check signed with taxpayer money to atone for the sins of its police force. Recent history paints a grim picture. $50 million awarded to a man wrongfully convicted of a 2008 murder. Another $50 million to 4 men, who each spent nearly 20 years in prison for a crime they did not commit. The price of injustice keeps rising, yet the cycle remains unbroken. And here is the ultimate insult. Who pays for these atrocities? Not the men who brutalized James Gibson, not the detectives who framed him, not the officials who allowed it to happen. No, the bill falls to the taxpayers, the very people who should be outraged by this injustice. Doctors are required to carry malpractice insurance. Why not police officers? Why should the public bear the cost of their misconduct while they walk away unscathed? If officers were held financially responsible for their actions, would we still see these rampant abuses of power? Would there still be a culture of silence, of cover-ups, of injustice disguised as law enforcement? The idea of requiring officers to carry personal liability insurance has been proposed as a solution, forcing accountability onto those responsible rather than onto the public. Proponents argue that this would not only ease the financial burden on taxpayers, but also incentivize better policing. Opponents, particularly police unions and lawmakers, resist, claiming it could deter recruitment and serve as a backdoor to defunding the police. But what of the cost of inaction? As the city grapples with these dilemmas, the haunting stories of individuals like James Gibson serve as stark reminders of the profound human cost of systemic failures. The pursuit of justice demands not just settlements, but accountability. Not just apologies, but action. James Gibson deserves more than money. He deserves justice. He deserves to see the men who stole his life held accountable, not just in history books, but in courtrooms. He deserves a city that does not simply write checks to cover its sins, but one that reforms itself so that no other innocent man is forced to endure the same nightmare. More than anything, he deserves to know that his suffering was not in vain, that his story, his pain, and his fight will not be forgotten, that his name will not just be a footnote in yet another police misconduct lawsuit, but a turning point in the fight for real accountability, because until that happens, justice remains nothing more than a word, hollow and meaningless, in a system that continues to fail the very people it was built to protect.